April 27, 1865. The Mississippi River, just north of Memphis. In the pre-dawn darkness, a catastrophic event unfolded, shattering the stillness and claiming more lives than any other maritime disaster in American history. The paddle-wheeler SS Sultana, brimming with passengers, primarily recently freed Union prisoners of war, was ripped apart by a series of massive boiler explosions. The ensuing inferno and chaos would lead to a death toll that shockingly overshadowed even the Titanic. This was not an act of fate, but a tragic culmination of mechanical failures and profound logistical negligence, making it a disaster that was undeniably avoidable. The mid-19th century was defined by the relentless march of steam power. It revolutionized transportation, driving the rapid expansion of railroads and, crucially, making river travel faster and more accessible than ever before. Steamboats, with their iconic paddle wheels and towering smokestacks, were the arteries of commerce and human movement across America's vast river systems. They promised speed and efficiency, but this newfound power came with inherent risks, especially when pushed to their limits by commercial demand and a burgeoning nation. Launched in 1863, the SS Sultana was a marvel of its time. A sleek, fast sidewheel steamboat, she measured 260 feet in length and boasted 3 decks, designed for the lucrative cotton and passenger trade along the Mississippi. She was capable of carrying hundreds of passengers and crew, along with tons of cargo. Like many riverboats of her era, the Sultana was built primarily of wood, making her swift but also incredibly vulnerable to fire, a critical detail that would prove fatal in the disaster to come. Her reputation was one of speed and reliability, but underlying design choices carried inherent risks. At the heart of any steamboat were its boilers, massive, riveted iron cylinders designed to convert water into high-pressure steam. The Sultana, like most Western riverboats, employed a battery of horizontal tubular boilers. These typically featured many small tubes running through the water, heated by a furnace, maximizing the surface area for heat transfer. Constructed from multiple iron plates joined by rows of rivets, these boilers were under immense internal pressure. The integrity of every rivet and every plate was paramount, yet the manufacturing processes and inspection standards of the era were far from perfect. Steam power is inherently dangerous. A cubic foot of water, when converted to steam, expands to roughly 1,700 cubic feet. Containing this expansive force required robust materials and precise engineering. In the 1860s, metallurgy was still evolving, and boiler explosions were distressingly common. To maximize speed, engineers often pushed boilers beyond their recommended limits, sometimes even weighting down safety valves to build higher pressure, despite the obvious risks. This pursuit of speed and efficiency often came at the expense of safety, turning a technical marvel into a potential bomb. The SS Sultana was equipped with 4 large boilers, each measuring 17 feet long and 42 inches in diameter. They were installed in pairs, deep within the forward section of the hull, just behind the paddle wheels. While this placement optimized weight distribution and power delivery, it also meant that a catastrophic failure would occur directly beneath the main passenger decks. These boilers, several years into their service life, had endured countless cycles of heating and cooling, pressure fluctuations, and the general wear and tear of river travel. Their cumulative stress was a silent, invisible threat. The conclusion of the American Civil War in April 1865 brought an urgent logistical challenge: the rapid transport of tens of thousands of Union soldiers, especially paroled prisoners, from Southern camps back to their homes in the North. Steamboat captains were offered lucrative contracts by the government, $10 for each enlisted man and $5 for each officer. This system, designed for efficiency, inadvertently created a powerful incentive for greed, transforming the riverboats into dangerously overcrowded vessels, straining their resources and safety margins to the breaking point. During a stop in St. Louis, Missouri, a critical flaw emerged. One of the Sultana's 4 boilers developed a significant leak. Water could be seen escaping, a clear indication of structural weakness and imminent danger. A proper repair would have required replacing the compromised boiler plate, a process that could take several days and involve extensive downtime. For Captain Cass Mason, facing the lure of the substantial government contracts waiting downriver, this delay was unacceptable. profit motives began to overshadow safety imperatives. Under intense pressure to maintain his schedule and maximize earnings, Captain Mason made a fatal decision. Instead of a proper, time-consuming repair, he ordered a quick patch. A local boilermaker, with limited tools and even less time, hammered a thin sheet of iron over the bulging, leaking boiler plate. This cold patch was riveted into place, effectively masking the underlying structural fatigue rather than resolving it. This temporary fix, rushed and inadequate, was a ticking time bomb, a prime example of logistics negligence directly contributing to mechanical failure. The inadequate repair was compounded by a complete disregard for safety protocols. No comprehensive inspection followed the patch. Furthermore, despite its legal capacity of 376 passengers and crew, the Sultana was grossly overloaded. Driven by the per-head payment system, Captain Mason allowed an astonishing number of soldiers and civilians to board, packing them onto every available space on the decks and in the hold. This extreme overloading significantly increased the strain on the vessel's structure and, crucially, its already compromised boilers. By the time the Sultana left Vicksburg, its decks were a sea of humanity. Estimates place the number of people on board at somewhere between 2,200 and 2,400 souls, more than 6 times its legal limit. These were mostly tired, emaciated Union soldiers, many still recovering from their time in Confederate prison camps like Andersonville and Cahaba. This immense, unprecedented human cargo created extreme stress on the ship's timbers, put a relentless demand on its engines to maintain speed against the powerful Mississippi current, and stretched every aspect of the vessel's operational safety. The journey upriver from Vicksburg was arduous. The Mississippi River was in flood stage, creating a powerful current that demanded maximum power from the Sultana's engines. The increased water levels and fluctuating river temperatures also placed additional, unseen stresses on the boiler plates. As the engineers pushed the engines to their limit to make headway, the internal pressure on the boilers mounted, hour after hour. The hastily patched boiler, already structurally compromised, was subjected to extreme conditions it was never designed to safely withstand. The enormous weight of the passengers, the raging river current, and the continuous demand for speed created a perfect storm of conditions. Every flex of the Sultana's wooden hull, every vibration from the engine, contributed to the relentless fatigue on the boiler's metal. The patch, intended to cover a bulged plate, was likely covering a zone of extreme material thinness or fatigue. As the pressure inside the boilers rose, the weakest point would inevitably fail. It was not a question of if, but when, and under what precise conditions. Just after 2 a.m., in the dark hours of April 27, 1865, the inevitable occurred. 3 of the Sultana's 4 boilers ruptured almost simultaneously. The patch on the leaky boiler likely failed first, triggering a chain reaction. Superheated steam, at immense pressure, instantly flashed into a devastating volume of gas, tearing through the vessel's structure with explosive force. The resulting blast ripped apart the main deck, sending machinery and human bodies hurtling into the air. It was a violent, instantaneous event that gave the sleeping passengers no chance. The initial explosion was followed by a raging inferno. The Sultana's wooden construction, saturated with oil and paint, ignited immediately. Those not killed by the blast or scalding steam were trapped on the burning wreckage or plunged into the icy, flood-swollen Mississippi. Many could not swim, and those who could struggled against debris, panicked fellow passengers, and the powerful current. The darkness, the cold water, and the sheer number of victims overwhelmed any immediate rescue efforts, turning the river into a scene of unimaginable horror. The casualty figures are staggering and, due to the unofficial passenger count, remain somewhat imprecise. While the Titanic's loss of life stood at around 1,500, the SS Sultana disaster is estimated to have killed between 1,700 and 1,800 people, making it by far America's deadliest maritime tragedy. Most of the victims were young Union soldiers, returning home to a freedom they would never truly experience. The scale of this human loss is a stark testament to the unforgivable negligence that permeated every aspect of the Sultana's final voyage. The Sultana disaster was not a single point of failure but a catastrophic cascade of preventable errors. Firstly, the military's system of payment incentivized dangerous overloading. Secondly, Captain Mason prioritized profit over human lives, knowingly overloading his vessel and approving an inadequate repair. Thirdly, the boilermaker's hasty and improper repair directly led to the structural failure. And finally, the lack of effective inspection and regulation created an environment where such blatant disregard for safety could flourish. Each element was a thread in the web of negligence that ultimately doomed the Sultana and its passengers. In the immediate aftermath, a court-martial was held, but true accountability proved elusive. Captain Mason died in the explosion, and many others involved either escaped conviction or faced lenient penalties. The scale of the disaster, overshadowed by the joyous end of the Civil War and the assassination of President Lincoln, meant it never fully captured the nation's sustained attention. While it did prompt some minor reforms in steamboat safety, these were often piecemeal and lacked comprehensive enforcement, leaving many of the systemic issues unaddressed for years to come. The SS Sultana disaster stands as a chilling reminder of how critical the intersection of engineering integrity and ethical leadership truly is. The catastrophic loss of life was not an inevitable outcome of 19th-century technology, but a direct consequence of human choices, the choice to prioritize profit over safety, expediency over proper repair, and convenience over rigorous inspection. It underscores the timeless lesson that when fundamental engineering principles and basic human safety are neglected, even the most advanced or commonplace technologies can turn into instruments of immense destruction. The Sultana's tragedy was avoidable, a preventable nightmare etched into American history.